For you?
It's wonderful hearing your voice.
People poured into the
Yes.
streets after a jury
Wonderful hearing
convicted
your
It was
voice.
Minneapolis
great.
police officer
So
Derek
I
Chauvin of
am going
murder and
to
manslaughter in the
let
death of George
uh,
Floyd. The
my
AP's Sagar
beautiful
Madani
ladies
with the
go
Floyd family
so I
reaction.
can speak with you all can say hello to the pastor very
Good
quickly.
morning.
Let me let you all go so we can get on
Good
with the
morning.
show. Thank
Good
you
morning,
so
Reverend
much.
Johnson. Good morning. Have a great show.
Thank you.
Have a good show.
Thank you. Love you much. God bless.
Yep. All righty.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Sandy,
Yes.
Sandy, it was so good to hear your voice last Wednesday.
Oh, bless your heart.
You were beautiful.
Thank you
You were
so
beautiful.
much. I was looking for you in the crowd because I thought we
I
would
was
all be
out
able to
there.
get
I
up
was
and.
sitting. No, I was sitting back there with Lois.
Vote now for Derek Chauvin.
Okay.
AP
But I was
correspondent
looking
Julie
for you
Walker.
because
After the guilty
I
verdict
thought it
was
would be
read,
kind of
his
nice
bail
to
was revoked. He was led
have
out of
people
court
up.
in handcuffs. His lawyer, Eric
But
Nelson,
you
following
did a
without
great job.
comment.
You didn't need any
Sentencing will be in 2 months
support.
for the most
No,
serious
no, it
charge
wasn't even about my
Wonderful
support. It
job.
was about us reflecting Uncle
It's up to
Saint.
Judge Peter Cahill
You
to
know,
decide.
Yeah,
On
that
Monday,
for
they'll
me,
snap
that's
for
but
his
that's
trial.
what it was about.
you did it good enough for all of us.
About the
I
outcome of the
appreciate
trial.
it, but
It
that's
was
I
denied.
just
Yeah.
Cahill
thought
said
it would
that
be.
could be grounds for an
I thought it
appeal.
would be
However,
fun.
legal experts say
You
it's
know,
unlikely.
because Ralph was up
I'm
there, Uncle
Hundreds of
Mickey.
protesters challenged police
Yeah,
and
People.
I
video
saw
last
all
night
of them
You
after
know.
officers shot and
who
killed a
knew,
black teenage
the real
Yeah.
girl who
people who
swung
knew.
at teachers
Yeah,
with a knife.
that's
according to
all I
body
was
cam
saying. I
footage.
thought it would be
Columbus
nice
Mayor
for
Yeah.
Kevin
that.
Ginther is
So
defending the
maybe
officer,
we can do
saying he fought
something,
to
you know,
protect
after the
someone.
pandemic is
This
over.
is AP News.
Oh,
We can celebrate
absolutely.
him in a broader way.
Yeah.
And now for
Mhm.
something out of this world. The AP's Tim McGuire reports.
NASA and SpaceX are about to take recycling to
Having
a higher
trouble with
level.
my printer.
Crew readies to head to the International Space Station. NASA Commercial Crew Program Manager Steve Stitch says a coming launch is on. We'll go for launch on Thursday morning. An international crew of 4 astronauts.
Okay, I'm
will board a
sorry.
previously
Okay,
used
thank you,
SpaceX
thank you.
Dragon
I'm
capsule
sorry,
on
babe.
board a previously used
I am trying to
Falcon
get
rocket
this stuff
for launch from
done.
Cape Canaveral to the
I'm having
International
printer
Space Station.
problems, and this is like
Benji Reed of SpaceX
the thing that
prefers the term
I
flight
do
proven.
not
Reused
want to
vehicles and flight-proven vehicles
have
is
to.
key towards greater flight reliability and lowering the cost of
I mean,
access
it's
to
just
space.
Each capsule is
to
designed
have
for
to
at least
go
5
get
missions with a
another
crew. The Falcon can be used 10
printer
times
is
through
like, ugh.
satellites. SpaceX and NASA are
You talk about
assessing
not
how
wanting to
many
be bothered
times
with
it can
that.
safely launch astronauts.
But anyway,
I'm Tim McGuire.
but
And I'm
it
Rita
was
Foley,
a wonderful
AP News.
service.
Yes, it was. And Junior and Johnny did a great job.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
It was a good service. I think you would have been happy with it. Nicole was great.
Oh, wasn't she
Oh,
excellent?
she
Oh,
was.
wow.
She really was. She really, 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 really was. I'm so
Mm.
proud of her.
Mm. Yeah. And Mike did a great job.
Oh, well, you know, all you can do with Uncle Mike is just laugh. Jonathan said, I think I have inherited you, Uncle Mike. And, you know, Uncle Saint's word for him, the big dummy. I said, oh. I was like, oh my gosh. That's what was so heartwarming about everything that, you know, it was, you know, and that's, you talk about a life well lived. You know,
Oh, yes.
when you look up and people are laughing and smiling at your funeral, that to me was, I said, this is
Tom Hartman.
what a
The media's
fitting.
all over this cancel culture thing, but how are they missing the real cancel culture
Yeah,
that's
this is
actually
Uncle
happening
Saint.
right in
We
front
are
of our faces?
Yeah,
smiling.
a fitting homegoing.
Yeah.
Trying to cancel any support to
We
Americans who have
are.
lost their
We
jobs because
are.
of the way that Trump handled the COVID crisis. The Republicans have been trying to cancel
So,
stimulus money or anything to the
do
American
this.
people.
The Tom Hartman Radio Program.
Ugh.
Weekdays 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay.
CPT 820,
So
where facts matter.
I can hear that in the background. So,
Remember me? I'm just tired of living in the dark. It's
okay.
dry, it's smelly, and my skin hurts. So I made a visit to Total Dentistry and Dr. Pellick. She told me I was experiencing mask breath. It's a common thing dentists see now. She explained that dry mouth causes bacterial levels to rise, which cause my gums to swell, bleed,
Huh.
and yes, cavities.
Paul,
to
we're inside of
return.
a minute.
She suggested
That's correct.
Thank you.
my water, wash my mask, watch my diet, brush, and floss. But most important during this pandemic was my checkup. Dryness can even lead to mouth ulcers and bacteria growth on your
Thank you.
tongue. Ooh, I have to live in that. I'm so thankful to Total Dentistry. I feel confident now that I'll be okay and ready to unveil my smile soon. Are you ready to unveil? Total Dentistry, a general dental practice like no other, now in Streamwood and
15.
847-358-2477 or visit
10.
totaldentistry.org. Let us help you unmask your smile.
Chicago's
5.
Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter. This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. I'm Santita. It is Wednesday, April 21st, 2021. The Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Sending out major shout outs to you today. We're going to be talking about the Derek Chauvin case, so we want to hear from you. Of course, here at WCPT, my home station here in Chicago, we want to hear from you. What is your reaction to this case? And what about this child in Columbus, Ohio, who, as we were reading about, as we were having the verdict read to us, this child was killed on the front lawn, on her front lawn, after she called for the police. Wow. I just don't know what we're going to say about all of it. But Makia Bryant, 16 years of age, got to talk about all of it. All those things are happening all at one time. But, you know, we're so grateful for this verdict. But what do you think about it? Did it speak to a personal problem with the police or systemic problem with the police? Let's talk about that, everybody, because there were a whole lot of moving parts here, and I think we need to break it down here today. You had Keith Ellison, former congressman who is now the state attorney general, who really he masterfully marshaled this case through the court system. He made sure that the charges that were applied he would be convicted on these charges. So what's going to happen with these other police officers who will be tried together in a few months? How will all of this shake out, everybody? And how will Derek Chauvin be, given the fact that he has no record, if you will, prior to this murder? How much time will he have to serve? I mean, there's a whole lot that we need to talk about as you're hearing my printer finally print in the background. So I want you to call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. GWC Injury Lawyers will give you the opportunity to text to that number as well. So I want to hear from you today. I want you to call me. Of course, we're going to have Pastor Jerry McAfee and Spike Moss and others, David Masiocha from Salon Magazine. So many will be weighing in. Jonathan Jackson from the Rainbow Push Coalition. And we're going to be starting things off, of course, with attorney C.K. Hoffler to break down the charges and what the sentencing might be. I think we need to understand what we saw so that we can understand what we will be seeing going forward. So call me, text me. It's 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278, and give a shout out to GWC Injury Lawyers for giving us the opportunity to have you text. And I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, Santita Jackson and Friends. And please go over to YouTube. That's right, the Santita Jackson Show channel. Thank you so much for everybody for going on over there, because you're helping it to grow. Brian, Yolanda, Daphne, Shirley from Philadelphia, and Daryl. Everybody wants to talk about this today. Carol and Will and Paula and Effie Rolfe, my sister in the radio and in media. Indeed, she's been a model for me. Francis and Samantha and Tanya. I want to hear from everybody. Hannah from down there in South Carolina. Barbara Jean, Meddy, and Marnie, and Chapearl, and Linear Bob out there in San Jose, and Nina. So many of you. Let's talk about all of this today, because there's a whole lot to talk about. Okay, let's get right to some of these headlines, everybody. In Chicago, it's cool again, everybody. That's right. Chicago will have a high of 44 degrees, rain and snow. Did you see the snow yesterday? Oh, my goodness. 44 degrees in Minneapolis, St. Paul, mostly cloudy, but you're not going to get snow like we are in Chicago. Won't stick, but just the idea. It's April, right? The Dow closed down 256 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 128 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 28 points. And we're playing baseball in the snow, everybody. The Twins went down. Wow, they were shut out by the A's, 1-0. The Cubs that were triumphant over the Mets, 3-1. And the White Sox, wow, they walloped Cleveland 8-5. Everybody is talking about the George Floyd case. It is the decision heard round the world. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been found guilty of murder as the nation held its collective breath as President Biden and Vice President Harris reached out to the George Floyd family to express their support. We saw that Chauvin was convicted of all 3 charges against him related to the May 25th death of, now murder officially, of George Floyd, including 1 charge each of second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. Allies and activists expressed a bittersweet relief at the decision, and they said this is the Emmett Till. He is the Emmett Till of our generation. Indeed, people are saying this is a pivotal moment for America. Could America have come up with any other decision? I want to hear from you. Let's talk about this. Let's break it all the way down today on the Santita Jackson Show. The coronavirus vaccine supply in the U.S. may soon outpace the demand. And while that sounds like a good thing, it actually represents serious challenges, according to this CNN report. Experts say that this will result in slowed vaccine enthusiasm, even though only about 40% of all Americans have had a single dose and only 26% are fully vaccinated. I keep hearing different numbers, everybody. Well, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other infectious disease experts say in order to reach that all-important goal of herd immunity, 75 to 80% of the population needs to be immune to the virus. What do you think about that, everybody? How are we going to get there? How will we get there? We got to talk about that, everybody. In the meantime, a lot of people are sending a lot of praise to Darnella Frazier, 17 years of age last summer. She was out on Memorial Day walking her cousin to Cup Foods, for a little snicky snack. And it was her sense that something was wrong made her send her cousin into the Cup Foods, pull out her phone and record more than 8 minutes of a video that is really one of the most famous pieces of video in the history of recorded video. She has really changed the world. And she said, she posted on Facebook, "I've cried so hard at the verdict. This last hour, my heart was beating so fast. I was anxious, anxiety buzzing through the roof." And that's right, everybody. She actually felt that she needed to have done more. Bless her heart. She had survivor's guilt. Bless her heart. Bless that baby's heart. In the meantime, at the same time as we are getting a read on this particular verdict, guess what happened? Police shot and killed a teenage girl in Columbus, Ohio, just as we were getting this hearing. Wow. In an unprecedented move, according to this USA Today report, Columbus police later showed body cam footage of an officer shooting the girl, who was black, who, as she appeared to stab 2 people with a knife. Wow. The video shows an officer approaching the driveway with a group of young people standing there. In the video, it appears that the teenager, who was moments later shot by the police, pushes or swings at a person who falls to the ground. But no effort was made to tase her, to shoot pepper spray her way, nothing. Nothing. And now she is dead. Ma'Khia Bryant. What do you think about that? She was in foster care, and indeed, ironically enough, she had called the police to her home because 2 adults had come into her foster home and some kind of back and forth occurred. And it spilled out onto the lawn. Why is Ma'Khia Bryant dead today? So much to talk about. But we're going to get some good news in here from Pastor Vicki Johnson. St. Thomas Lutheran Church. Feels so good to call you, Pastor. How you doing?
Doing great this morning, Santita.
Oh, well.
It's a great day to be alive.
It is a great day. So, you give me some good news because, you always have a bit of a slant of civil rights that you put into this, because I guess because you grew up in the movement, right?
That's right. So today I am reflecting back in the early 70s. Reverend James Cleveland, the king of gospel, wrote a song for us entitled "The Push Is On."
Yes.
The lyrics were, "The push is on. There's work for us to do. The push is on. The job is up to you. We can make it a better place to live in right now. Can we count on you?" As I reflected on that song yesterday, it was as if Reverend Cleveland was singing it to the jury in the Chauvin trial for the murder of George Floyd. He asked them, "Can we count on you? Can we count on you to stand up for justice? Can we count on you to not be afraid to do the right thing? Can we count on you to believe what you have seen?" Well, although we were on edge, preparing for history to repeat itself as we had seen so many times before, we soon found out that we could count on them. And for this, we give God the praise. But the push is still on. There is still work for us to do. This was only one victory, although a big victory for us. We still have so many battles ahead. The push is on. The job is up to you. We can make it a better place to live in right now. The Minnesota DA Ellison said, "Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something."
Yes.
It's all right to celebrate for a little while, but in your celebrations, please remember that there is still work for us to do. Can we count on you? Can we count on you to do something in the fight against systemic racism? Can we count on you to help to get legislation through that will reform the criminal justice system? Can we count on you to make this world a better place? If we can count on you, and I'm sure that we can, then I believe that that's good news.
I love it. Amen. We can't do everything, but everybody can do something. Something.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
amen.
yes,
And that's what we saw growing up in the civil rights movement, quite frankly. We saw people
yes,
who everybody, we found a way to contribute everyone. Ma Houston selling candy, which kept the children quiet
yes.
while we were at the meeting. Oh my gosh, that just came to me. I don't know why. But you couldn't wait to get there because she had all the goodies, all the candies on her table.
Yes,
And you
she did.
bought
And
that
newspapers.
news.
And yeah,
Well, we no.
and social justice newspapers. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
we weren't paying attention to that. We saw the now
I
laters.
know you weren't.
Thank you. So we started to have the purple smile. Thank you. Yes.
You got the candy.
Come on, got the candy.
But
Oh,
we all did something. We all played our part
that's
in
true.
the movement. So we got to do it now.
Amen, amen. Because there's a lot of work to do. Because as we look at this Chauvin case, there's still the
Mhm.
sentencing. There's still other police officers who are going to go on trial, and we still,
Mhm.
at the same time that we are finding out that the verdict had been reached, we still had a young black girl who was killed on her front lawn yesterday, Makia Bryant.
Yes.
Let us. Why was she not tased? Why didn't you use mace? Why didn't you use pepper spray? Why? 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 What happened? Let's be very
Mhm.
clear. We're looking at a personal issue with, I mean, because everybody is talking about, before I bring on Dr. Deborah Fur Holden, Pastor Johnson, they're talking about, um, the police chief coming in and all the police officers. And I thought that was a good thing. That blue wall crumbled, but it did and it didn't. Because remember, the prosecutors are the police too. They were
Yes.
upbraiding, they were chastising one of their own. They were
Mhm.
expelling him from the ranks. They said, "You don't represent us." But no, no, no. Yeah, he does.
Yes.
So now we dealt with a personal problem. Now let's deal with the systemic problem, because according to the New York Times, between March 29th and April 17th, 3 persons per day have been killed by the police, more than half of them Black and Latino men.
Hmm.
Okay. So I just, boom.
There's work for us to do.
Look,
There is work.
The push is on, girl. You brought that out.
Yes,
Reverend
it
James
is.
Cleveland, we're going to revive that as we revive the Saturday Morning Forum. We're going to revive that song, and I'm going to need your help. Can I count on you to help us do that?
Oh, now you're going to throw it back on me, huh?
Oh, yeah, you did.
Of course you can.
As you throw it on me to sing, yeah. Throw
That's
it on
right.
you. There you go. I love you, Pastor Vicki Johnson.
I love you.
Thank you so much. The good news, the push is on. The push is on. Dr. Deborah Verholden, the push is on today with our health, with COVID-19. You know, I mean, there's a whole lot going on. We're talking about herd immunity. Will we ever reach it? Will we? Can we?
It's possible.
Okay.
It's possible. It's possible. We can get there, except see the notion that people had that we could somehow get there with people. A lot of these people with natural immunity. Remember the article that came out? I think it was in the. Wasn't the Post? It was the Wall Street Journal, where the guy was adding up. Okay, if we keep vaccinating at this rate, plus we add in all the people who've already had it and recovered, voila, we'll get there. Well, he didn't take into account life. And I already said that. I said we are not going to be able to continue to vaccinate at this rate. Number one, all that'll happen is one thing will happen. One thing will be pulled off the market, or one thing will happen, and we will see massive stalls in vaccination. And it's not just because of the supply, and I keep telling people, this thing with J&J, which I'm pretty sure is going to be unpaused in the next couple days. Mm-hmm. 6 people out of 7 million. I'm not pretending if you're one of the 6 that it's not trivia. But 6 women out of 7 million doses, 7 million people. This is a single dose vaccine. So when we say doses, we're talking about people. 7 million people got that vaccine, and 6 of them developed blood clots.
But let me ask you this: was it just
18 to 20%? But watch this.
Okay.
18 to 20% of all COVID patients who have to go to the hospital have blood clots, develop blood clots. 18 to 20%. So if you have to be hospitalized, and that's about 1 in 5, then 1 in 5 of those have blood clots. So we're looking at about 1 in 25 regular COVID patients, regular cases of COVID infection. About 1 in 25 will develop a blood clot from COVID.
Are they counting the
so
people?
1 in 7, 6 and 7 million. I mean, it's like, I just don't think people understand.
Well, no, I think
you much rather have the vaccine than COVID.
Yeah, I certainly would too. But the thing is, I'm wondering if those numbers are right. And you're in a better position than I. But let me just put this out here, just as someone who's going to ask some questions, because they have had problems with these clots with this vaccine, and now we're seeing with Moderna and Pfizer. That's what the Europeans are finding since last fall. So this 6 and 6 million, it sounds like a great talking point, but I said, no, I don't think they close it down over that, because you have too many people out here in social media who are saying, this is happening with this vaccine. And I just think, is it just 6 people? That's it? That doesn't even.
Well, we know what. Well, here's the thing, though. We know what we know.
Okay.
There's a very robust adverse event reporting system. Very robust. You can literally just Google, I got the COVID vaccine and had a reaction, and the adverse event reporting system will come right up. And I know, because I test this stuff out all the time, and I'm quick to tell people, Google it. Just Google, blah, blah, blah. And so we don't know. But what I do want to remind people, we don't really know. Okay. We can only go on what people are reporting. The other thing I do want to point out, and don't get me wrong, I'm not defending, definitely not a vaccine or a vaccine manufacturer. But exactly what was supposed to happen has happened. So a flag got raised, we paused. And now, can you imagine if anybody has developed a blood clot, right, since they've been vaccinated? Well, you would expect that the floodgates would be open and we'd see a whole lot of reporting happening right now, right? It's almost like if somebody does something bad and then they put their name in the paper and you say, they did something bad to me too. Everybody comes out of the woodwork. So I don't think that there's some massive underreporting, because if it were, just all of the, public attention being given to the pause, I think, we would have seen a lot more people coming out and reporting.
Well,
so I just encourage people, let's wait and see. Let's be driven by the data. Because, again, all this hysteria and going into the what about this and what about that, we should be questioning. We should be questioning. But we need data. We need facts. And we need to let that be our guide.
Well, just very quickly, because, some of the data would be people talking on Facebook and on these platforms about what's happening to them. But as soon as they discuss it, they're deplatformed, Deborah. And that becomes problematic, because that is another conversation. As soon as you post a news story about COVID, you're flagged in social media. I'm like, wait a minute, I got this from USA Today. I got this from the Wall Street Journal. I got this from the New York Times. I'm just posting a story. And it's like, whoa, hold on, you guys. I'm just posting a story. And, I wish we had space for more of a robust and open discussion, because then I think that people's suspicions would be doused, Dr. Deborah Verholden. And I think that that's very important. But I'm glad that you're a reassuring voice, because a lot of people who listen to the show every day, because of your reassurances, they have gone to get their vaccines. I'm not going to put their names out there, but there's some people very close to you whom and they've gone on.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a good thing, because they feel informed, and they feel informed by someone they trust. And that's very, very important. And you know how much we love you. I have about 30 seconds. Your final word today?
1 minute.
I'm gonna keep bringing the best insight and information that I have as I get it, and I do encourage people to keep questioning, keep looking. But as you start to look, just also think about the other side of that coin, right? The other side of that equation. The fact that vaccination is slowing down so much now is a bit of a concern for me. We flattened the curve.
30.
We brought the rates down.
Yes.
In the absence of a vaccine, we did that with good public health. This vaccine was supposed to be the thing that tipped the scale and really get us to that point where we could really reopen and start to reengage.
Okay.
And
15.
Out like that. And the public health
10.
Relax.
Well, we need
I really just encourage people. We
5.
Layers of protection operating at the same time. We got to get out of this thing.
Absolutely, because we are tired of it. Hey, everybody, we're victorious. Let's talk about the Derek Chauvin case on the Santita Jackson Show. Yeah, that is like blasting me out, Paul.
Okay, so I barely had it up.
No, yeah. No. There's something going on over here. The volume button that's just below the input for my headphones is not working. When I'm talking to you right now, I'm moving it back and forth. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I literally, while I was talking to you, I was moving it to the left, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, all the way. It did not make anything.
Okay.
So I have no control over that. And this is also, I think, secondhand equipment. Very expensive, but still, there might be an issue. So, Dr. Deborah Verholden, we're going to move on to this.
Is Robert Patillo coming on?
No, not today. Oh my gosh, I know. I've got CK breaking down the legal side, but then we've got Jonathan Jackson, who's going to be coming on, Reverend Jerry McAfee from Minneapolis, St. Paul from Minneapolis. We've got Spike Moss from Minneapolis. We've got David Masiotra from Salon Magazine. To just to break down. I've wanted to find out, how people are feeling up there, and now we see this girl who was killed, on her front lawn, foster child, and it's like, whew, and on average, 3 people per day, at least in that 20-day period, starting the day before the trial, 3 people per day have been killed by the police. Now, we don't know all the circumstances, but that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And, the fact that this girl, she had a knife, but, they say you don't bring a gun to a knife. You don't bring a knife to a gunfight, but you shouldn't bring a gun to a knife fight. Okay? What was that about?
We've seen the police bring many suspect or a person in with well more than a knife.
Yeah. I mean,
Dylan Attorney Hoffler
killed all these people.
Yep.
And you all didn't treat him this way. You took him to get something to eat at Burger King. Have it your way. What? Girls, look.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I will tell you, I had a lot of tears shed around me yesterday. We were working on a grant that was due at 6 o'clock, and we got that thing in at 5:58. We were able to actually get it submitted and got our confirmation back. But one of the people on the team said we were all working in like a virtual kind of office space together, and said, the verdict is back. I said, I can't, please don't. Like, please don't. Like, we were literally rushing mad dash to the finish line.
Well, yeah.
And she just couldn't resist. She said, guilty all charges. And then people started to talk, and somebody else on the team said, we have 22 minutes left to click submit. So everybody just had to pause. So once the grant actually was submitted, there was just
1 minute.
Motion,
okay, 1 minute.
And everybody was quiet. And I realized it was because of the verdict.
Oh, yeah.
And we were on that call, white, black, everybody had a tear in their eye. I think we were all in shock, surprise, joy, all of that. It was a really, and I think they say people, regardless of if you were white or black.
30.
Hold on. I got 30 seconds.
On the call, yes.
I got 30.
People started sharing things that had happened to them.
Well,
and
absolutely.
Why this was restorative for them.
Hold on.
Why this matters.
Hold on. Let me get CK's voice. CK, let me hear you.
Good morning.
Okay, good.
10.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. So I got, me, I got to do a little house cleaning before I come up.
Yes.
Okay. So CK, we're going to dig into this case. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to call me at 773-763-WCPT. Okay, I'm speaking over my own intro again, but there we go. It's the Santita Jackson Show, as you can hear, WCPT 820 in Chicago and AM 950 radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're talking about the Derek Chauvin case. Wow. He was found guilty on every count. What does that mean? What was he found guilty of? Why wasn't he charged with first-degree murder? What impact did the state attorney general, former Congressman Keith Ellison, what impact did his marshaling of this case? And it was masterful. How did he impact the case? And what about the prosecution? We want to dig into all of this with this legal eagle, with the president of the National Bar Association, indeed the largest and oldest black bar association in the world, more than 65,000 lawyers. And of course, she was talking about this. Everybody was anticipating this on her radio show on WAOK, the iconic black talk radio station down in Atlanta, every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. We've got a lot of questions, but what we did find out at CK Hoffler, Derek Chauvin, even as he has been charged, at least as of yesterday, he is still eligible to keep his pension despite the guilty verdict. Wow. What do you think about that? Yeah. He's still, according to this Newsweek report, although he was fired from the police department, I'm reading, and has been convicted of second-degree murder in the death of George Floyd and other charges. He was found guilty on every count. The Minnesota Public Employees Retirement Association confirmed in Newsweek that he would remain eligible for those benefits. The spokesperson, Doug Anderson, wrote in an email, quote, regardless of the outcome today, Derek Chauvin remains eligible for a pension. He is eligible to commence a monthly benefit, reduced for early retirement at age 50 or an unreduced benefit at age 55. He turned 45 years of age last month, according to an analysis of police payroll, salary, and contract information from CNN. Chauvin, get this, CK, could receive more than $1 million in pension benefits, which are partially funded by the taxpayers. $50,000 a year in state pension benefits. I just thought it was important for us to know that, everybody, even as we are mourning the death of Makia. What happened here, everybody? How was it that as we were reading about this particular case, that this girl who had a knife, they didn't tase her, they didn't mace her, no pepper spray, she was shot and killed on the front lawn. Now, she had called the police. She's a foster child. Let me not conflate all of these things, but there's just so much that comes at you, Makia Bryant. I just don't even, but let's start with Derek Chauvin. Let's start with him, who's going to be getting his pension. Unless, I guess they pass a law to make it not happen. What happened yesterday, C.K. Hoffler?
What happened? Well, what happened is we all sighed a collective sigh of relief. What happened was some measure of justice, where Derek, and I had said before, especially once I heard all of the evidence, that I thought that the evidence did support a first-degree murder charge, but nonetheless, he was convicted across the board, and the prosecution put on a very compelling case. And their approach, they were very methodical, and it wasn't just the evidence of the fact witnesses. It wasn't just the evidence of the medical witnesses and the different types of medical witnesses. It was also the fact that the rank and file police officers also testified against him, starting with the police chief, and went through details of how he violated the protocols, the training, the rules, the ethics, and the professionalism, and when he should have stopped, at what point. And that was compelling. And then, of course, the most compelling piece of evidence was at 9 minutes and 29 seconds. So all of that together with very skillful lawyers, by and large, I think, and just the climate that we have in this country resulted in this jury looking at the evidence and making a very quick decision for this kind of case. For other cases may not have been quick. For this kind of case, given that there were 38 witnesses, 39 witnesses, and the length of the trial, that was quick. And when they came back at that time, I felt confident that there was a conviction of some sort. I don't know if it was all three, but I knew that if they convicted on the second-degree murder, that it was all three charges, because the others are lesser charges and more and easier to prove. And if you convict on the most difficult ones, then the others will follow suit. So that's what we saw. And we also saw the defense that overplayed its hand in closing. This reasonable police officer, by saying every time he said reasonable police officer, it begged the question, well, you might be talking about some other reasonable police officer, but this police officer was not reasonable. His very actions, 9 minutes and 29 seconds, knee at the neck of someone who, after he had passed out or died, he still had a knee at his neck. After the paramedics came in, still had a knee at his neck. After there was no pulse, it was very clear he was not reasonable. So when you talk about a reasonable officer over and over, he must have said that 200 or 300 times, thinking that it would stick. What I think probably the jury said, because I know I was thinking, well, you're not describing Derek Chauvin. You're describing some other reasonable officer, but it's not this one. And I think also misstating the law for the defense, that didn't help either. But frankly, it was the evidence that mounted against them and the legal posturing of the case, I believe, and prosecutors bringing that evidence, because it's not good enough to have the evidence, and it's not good enough to just present it in an okay case. You have to present it in a way that is most compelling, leaving no stones unturned. That's why I focused on the fact witnesses, meaning people who actually saw what happened, the medical witnesses that talked about the medicine, how he died, the law enforcement witnesses, and then also just the evidence of the video. That was the whole kit and caboodle, as they said. And they tied it together in closing and reminded this jury how there really was nothing else to show them that could prove his guilt beyond, because they had done it. And I think that just became something where the jury got it. They probably got it early on, and they probably, because the studies show that most jurors make up their minds after closing arguments. So most of them have in their mind, I think this person's guilty or not guilty, and all they're waiting for is the evidence to support it, because the opening statements truly should forecast the evidence. So I think that they got it early on, evidently, because their verdict was loud and clear. Guilty, 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 and by the way, guilty, guilty, guilty. And so I hope that the sentencing will reflect the clear message of the jury. Not so sure about that, but I'm hoping that it will reflect the clear message of the jury.
We're talking with attorney
So that's
C.K.
what happened, Santita.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking with attorney C.K. Hoffler about the verdict. We'll be talking with Jonathan Jackson from Rainbow Push and Reverend Jerry McAfee from Minneapolis, St. Paul, Spike Moss from Minneapolis, St. Paul, David Massiotra, attorney Mark Fancher, and attorney C.K. Hoffler at the top of the hour about what's happening in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And we want to get everyone's reactions to this verdict. What do you think is going to happen in the trial? It'll be one trial. The 3 other police officers will be tried as one group, as one entity this summer. I think will be in August. I want to know what you're thinking, everybody. Were you relieved? Do you think that we've turned a corner? Was this a pivotal moment? I mean, we saw the president do something very unusual. He reached out to George Floyd's brother the night before the verdict, and then after the verdict, you said this was a good thing. This is a pivotal moment. And I'm just wondering, and it was wonderful. He does have a tremendous gift for empathy because he has suffered so greatly in his own life. That having been said, this was something the whole world was watching, CK. The whole world, because you can't talk junk to Putin when you've got this problem with George Floyd hanging over you. this kind of had to, in terms of politics, had to come down this way. But that having been said, what about Derek Chauvin? Because this really is about him right now. And it's like I saw him put his hands behind his back before they even cuffed him. It's like he was resolute, ready to go to prison. Boom, and that was that. Soldiered on in there. How much time do you think he will serve? Where will he be held? Will he be put in general population? I would think this has got to be one of the most unpopular people to ever be put in prison.
Well, I do think, I do hope that he does get the maximum sentence. That's what he should have. I do believe that the prosecutors, and it is their right, will ask for more than 40 years, for instance, for the second-degree murder, more than 25 years for the third-degree murder, and more than 10 years for the manslaughter, for the second-degree manslaughter. They have the right to ask for more than the sentencing guidelines. This judge is going to play a pivotal role in the sentencing. That's what we have to take into consideration. And of course, there's going to be issue of, probation officer, all of that. We're going to see law enforcement and the whole machinery and the criminal justice system that will weigh in on that. But at the end of the day, the judge is the one who's going to pronounce it. And the sense that I have this judge and I discussed, I was not at all feeling good about the judge's comments about Congressman Maxine Waters. Didn't like it. And I'm a trial lawyer and I respect judges. That's what I do. When you try cases in front, it doesn't matter who your judge is, you have to respect it's their court. However, I have sometimes you disagree with judges, and I just do it in a polite, respectful way to make my record. But that comment about Congresswoman Maxine Waters was not necessary, and I didn't like it. It doesn't have any legal significance because the issues on appeal are the issues on appeal. They would appeal this case no matter what. Every criminal defendant usually appeals their convictions. So, there would be no exception here. But I just felt that it was a gratuitous comment. I think what I didn't like about the motion that was made by defense counsel was that there was racial animus tied up in it, because there are white supremacist groups and everyone else that have been making all kind of statements everywhere. And there was no discussion of, well, I feel that I've been prejudiced because of them making the statements. It was, so that's that racial animus that reared its ugly head again. And the jury was deliberating at that point. So the jury wasn't even aware of it, but I'm just saying that just smacked us in the face. And I really I was offended by that.
Well, but let me ask you
I took offense,
this.
and I didn't like the judge's comments.
Well, I didn't
frankly.
either, but I'm trying to figure out how gratuitous it was. I didn't think it was a throwaway because he's a judge. He is shrewd. All of them aren't, but it seems like all the lights are on his chandelier. Okay. When he looked at that defense counsel and said, maybe you'll be able to appeal on this. I said, whoa, are you throwing him a bone?
But well, and
I mean, I'm no lawyer.
I didn't think it was a good, right, but I didn't think it was a good thing to do. But I've been in many cases, trials where we won and all kind of stuff, where the judge made all kinds of comments like that and threw the other side of the bone. But the bottom line is, it's not for the judge to make a determination when the issues go up on appeal. It's the record that is made and the evidence. So I just didn't like that he made it, but I don't think that it's going to, these trial lawyers, the defense lawyers, are going to attack the record in a ferocious way if Derek Chauvin chooses to appeal it, which I imagine he will, because the police union is going to want to appeal it. They don't want to have this kind of verdict out there. I mean, it doesn't just have an impact on what happens in Minnesota. It has an impact on what happens across the board for law enforcement. So the police unions are the ones that would help to finance all of that. But I do think the judge, in my impression, shouldn't have said that, but it's his prerogative because it's his courtroom. And he expressed frustration consistently about outside forces. All judges do when they're high-profile trials. They're very, very, sometimes judges will impose a gag order. There was no gag order or anything like that imposed, meaning no one can talk to the crowd. I'm not aware that there was a gag order here, but it's the judge's prerogative. I didn't like it, but what I really didn't like was defense counsel's motion. I didn't like the motion because that to me reeked of racial animus. The judge's response was the judge's response, but I didn't like the motion itself, because if you're going to make that motion, then make it be intellectually honest. Make it across the board and just say there are a lot of people who are out there making these comments, because there were a lot of white supremacy groups that were also making comments, and other people were making very, very negative comments as related to George Floyd and all of that.
All she said to do was in keeping with her civil rights bona fides was, look, you cannot tweet your way into freedom, guys. You must stay out in these streets and demonstrate. You must demonstrate. She did not say riot. She said you must demonstrate before I go to the callers.
But what I'm saying, Santita, even if she did say riot, she is not on trial. First of all, there was nothing wrong with what she said. Nothing. But even if she did say riot, but she's not on trial. So I did not think there was anything wrong with what she said. It happens all the time in cases, high profile cases. Think of the OJ trial. Remember during the OJ trial, all the stuff that was going on during that trial? I mean, that's what happens when there are high profile cases. The Rodney King trial. That happens when there are high profile cases. Any high profile case is going to have people making comments one way or the other. Publicly. There was nothing objectionable publicly. There's nothing objectionable from my standpoint with what Maxine Waters said. Nothing.
No, but they've been trying to shut her up. So it's not going to work, you guys.
Right. And guess what? They failed again. And it's never going to work. So there. No. But what I'm saying is there was no correlation at all, in my impression, from a legal. I saw no prejudice whatsoever in what Congresswoman Maxine Waters said and anything involving the trial. Surely the jurors were not sitting out there protesting with Maxine Waters. No, they were going to be deliberating. They weren't listening to what Maxine Waters or anybody was saying.
Absolutely.
So it didn't impact. There's no evidence that there was an impact on them. The jurors deliberated. Quite frankly, they were smacked in the face with evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence that Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd, period, in the discussion. Okay. That's why they gave the verdict that they gave. So all this other, what is this and that nothing to do ultimately with what happened. But always when you have cases where people feel some kind of way, they're going to do motions for mistrial because of different things, because they were, in essence, preserving the record.
Okay. Well, let me go to Pam. Pam from Chicago. I know you have something to say, Pam.
Good morning, Santita, and good morning to the panel. Thank you for the enlightening discussion. First and foremost, I felt relief. The family members that I watched the verdict with felt relief. Of course, tears streaming down because we just didn't know. I thought there would be a conviction. Didn't think on all charges, but that occurred, and I'm thankful to the jury. Santita, I'm so thankful to those young people. See, we talk about young people being out and about, but when you look at what's going on now, these young people are the eyes and ears on the street. Mm-hmm. And they're capturing the beatings and killings and shootings by these officers. So let me just move into quickly solutions. And of course, I'd like your panel to comment. At this point, Santita, I sent a email to Senator Durbin and Duckworth, and it stated this: I want to see polygraph tests during pre-employment, during the law enforcement officer's career, and during the termination exit interview.
You're saying for
I
the
want
police.
to see the same.
You're saying for
the police.
Okay.
Yes, and these will center around, of course, questions comprised about race to determine if there is any bias, racism, which we know there are many racist officers on the force because it's not a law to not hire you if you're a racist. And I've asked the Chicago Police Department. But I want to see the same vetting that caused the Secret Service to remove those National Guardsmen. Whatever vetting took place to secure Biden, I want the same vetting of all law enforcement positions to secure the safety of Black people and any other people who are abused by police officers. At this point in time, I think it's reasonable. I was thankful, Santita, to see your dad there from PUSH, the attorneys representing the families, and I want to make sure that I encourage all of us to support organizations that are doing the work, Santita. Mm-hmm. Because, right. We have the other side doing the same. I mean memberships, I mean donations, I mean everything to help fight this evilness. And it's not going to stop. We're getting ready to feel a backlash, right? The police department and some of those racist officers who hold that animus, we're getting ready to feel a backlash.
Pam. Since March 29th, 3 people per day have been killed in the United States by police. Since March 29th.
Exactly.
Okay, they have been amped up. And so even as wonderful as this moment is, because I think that you need to administer drug tests for the police.
Yes. After the shooting, we don't know what
right.
chemical system. What chemicals were in Chauvin's system.
C.K. Hoffler. Come on, you gotta find out. Pam's
so
making some
that
great
reasonable,
points.
Santita?
Yes, to me.
In addition to the George Floyd Justice Act, is that reasonable? Thank you.
I'm loving you, Pam. C.K. Hoffler, I think that's reasonable because no one is asking if these guys are amped up on drugs, alcohol, whatever. I think we need to find out about their backgrounds too.
No, and I do think that there needs to be, when we're talking about an overhaul of the criminal justice system and policing reform, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is as comprehensive as you can get that I've seen in terms of accountability and the process training every step of the way for police officers. I do think that there needs to be, but we can't stop there. That's federal legislation. Mm-hmm. Every state has its own policing laws. And that's, for instance, in the Breonna Taylor civil settlement, part of the civil settlement was policing reform. Because even if you do have federal statutes that cover some things, in the localities and in the states, you also have things that are going on that are very disturbing that may not, where the federal statutes may not cover them. So cover those issues. So I think that's why we've got to push on all levels. We have to get the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, but then we also need to make sure that in our localities that we fight for policing reform and modifications. And that is happening. And that is happening in a lot of places because people are just sick and tired of seeing this happen. And I think a lot of it is background. When the police officers, in some instances, you don't have to have any training. They go for a little training course here and there, come from anywhere. Like that the guy who shot up all of these people here in Atlanta recently, who targeted Asian Americans, he probably could have gone and applied and become a police officer. And nobody would have been the wiser. No one would have known. Nobody would have asked. He had the criteria. He had maybe a high school degree, maybe. And that may have been sufficient. So looking into backgrounds, I think, is a good thing, but we have to be careful. Because when you pick a jury, we have to look at the background. It doesn't catch everything. It's not going to catch everyone who has in their heart racial animus. But it's a start.
But
and we're so far behind. We have to start somewhere. We have to do something.
Because there's racial animus, and there are people who are all just power trips. Because it's racialized, and sometimes it's just you've got a power thing. Because you will see black officers go ham on black people and Latinx, and white people go off on white folks. It's a power trip, and I think that all of these things, if citizens not be above suspicion, I think police who are citizens need to be treated the same way. You gotta let, because I gotta believe that when you talk to people just anecdotally, and particularly folks who are really, really down on the ground, they give you a lot of different stories about police that make you go, there's a lot more to this than thought. They can be involved in a whole lot, everybody. That's just the way this thing works. But I want you to stay right here, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. I got a minute before I go to break. But, we're going to bring it up Jonathan Jackson, Pastor McAfee, and David Masiotra, and Mark Fancher, and Spike Moss. And we're going to be talking about what it's feeling like, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, in Minneapolis, St. Paul. But you've got to let us know legally what we're looking at. The fact that this man has not had a record before, will that be something that the judge will consider? And this is not who's going to weigh in, who's going to determine his sentencing. Is it going to be a jury, or is it going to be the judge?
It's the judge. It's not a jury.
Okay.
No, it's going to be the judge. Ultimately, it's going to be the judge. There will be recommendations made. The state will make recommendations. There are a lot of people that will weigh in. Parole officers, all that. They will weigh in, and they will look at his background. They're going to do, a lot, and those factors the judge will weigh. But there's some other funky stuff in his background too that maybe we don't know about, and the jury never heard. So I think the background thing could backfire. But all of the
1 minute
information that we don't know right now, perhaps that would go into the sentencing. There's sentencing guidelines and all of that, and there are going to be letters written on both sides, right? And statements made on both sides. And all of those things the court will take into consideration. Just as there were, the rank and file police officers lined up against them, trust me, the unions are going to have some police officers to testify about how great he is. So a lot of things will go into this.
We're talking with Attorney C.K. Hoffler. She's going to have a lot of people joining her. We're going to talk about the Derek Chauvin case. Did you know that he will be able to hold on to his pension, everybody? $50,000 a year. He could receive more than $1 million in pension benefits. That's right. This conviction will not change that. That has been established.
10.
What do you think about that? WCPT 820 in Chicago and AM 950 Radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul. This is the Santita Jackson Show. Thank you, CKO. Stay right there. Can you believe he still has his pension? I wanted you to be able to stretch out and talk about that.
That is crazy. But see, pension negotiations, all that. They've got police unions who are negotiating to secure all of that. So,
but that's what they said in the story. They said, it's the police unions. Said, no, these pensions are sacrosanct. Think about Lieutenant Commander John Burge in Chicago. And he raped black boys and men. And then after he retired, he was allowed to retire. He went to Florida and he was living on a fabulous pension. Do you all think that's right? 773-763-WCPT.
Did he go to Burger King too?
Hey, Dylan Roof kills a room full of church people. while they are worshiping the Lord on a Wednesday night service. They welcomed him in. He sat there, shut everybody up, and those who he didn't kill, he just looked at him and walked out the door. Then he went on the lam for about 5 minutes, and then when he was picked up by the police, alive, they took him to Burger King. What a metaphor. What a metaphor. CK. What? Burger King? Really? Girl, look. CK, come on.
Burger King versus McDonald's.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Because he may have said, I really don't, I really don't like McDonald's. Do you think you could take me to Burger King and ask for some special sauce? They have a new sauce out there. Could you ask for that? I don't want this. I want that.
Hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, special.
Lettuce.
Hold the pickles, hold the lettuce. Special orders don't upset us.
Orders don't upset us.
All we ask is that you let us.
That you let us
have it your way.
Have it your way.
At Burger King.
At Burger King. Have it your way. Mm-hmm. So that's why he didn't want McDonald's. He wanted Burger King.
Because he had it his way. Wow.
He had it his way. Yeah, because he had just killed all those black people, and so he had it his way. And then he just wanted to have that meal, so he had his way, so he could just have so much, be so excited as he tasted the Burger King.
Girl, stop.
As he had done his deed.
Girl, hush. Just be quiet, CK. No.
Have it your way at Burger King. That's just, you kill people, you got to go to Burger King and have it your way. I don't know. Did he have a milkshake too?
Girl,
was it strawberry?
Let me tell you something.
Okay, I need to stop.
Oh.
We have Reverend McAfee.
Oh no! Okay, my goodness. Here is the Christian terrorist, Pastor McAfee. We love Pastor McAfee. Anytime my father and brothers all smile and then crack up in that order when we mention his name. we love you, Pastor McAfee.
Thanks.
Oh no, if I were in Minneapolis, I'd be at your church. I'm like, I don't know what this guy's gonna say next, but I know it's gonna be right. I love it.
I'm gonna stick to X.
We have Mr. Jonathan Jackson.
Oh no, here's Jonathan. Jonathan.
Hey,
I have
Santita, how are you?
I
Santita,
love you.
I can only stay till about 7:20.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries, but I've
Okay.
got the I've got Pastor McAfee, and of course I have
No.
that's right. I have someone.
I mean, yes.
Yes. I have the leavening agent of CK Hoffler, but we got Pastor McAfee.
Hey, Reverend McAfee, how you doing, sir?
Man, I'm great. I am great.
Congratulations.
Next fight. Thank you so much. It was it's settling that after years we on some.
Oh, hold on. I think someone's in a car. And if you're in a car, make sure you roll up the window, okay? Very good.
We have Mr. Masiotra.
Okay. Mr. Masiotra, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Santita?
Doing great. You know what? I have got Jonathan Jackson with us, of course, whom you know. But we've got Pastor Jerry McAfee. He's our pastor up in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I know he doesn't want to claim us, but we claim him. New Salem Missionary Baptist Church. Oh, boy. Well, we love Pastor McAfee.
I've heard him on the program before.
Oh, he is
happy to be with him today.
Oh, we're so honored to have him. And
always happy to be with Jonathan.
and CK Hoffler. That's right, Attorney CK.
Oh, hi, CK. How are you?
She's been breaking all of this down for us. But David has a...
Good morning. Good morning. I'm doing well. Good morning to everybody.
Absolutely. Pastor McAfee, David Masiotra has written a book about Reverend. It's out now. I Am Somebody, Why Jesse Jackson Matters, something that you would really appreciate. Because, in fact, it was Pastor McAfee and Mr. Spike Moss who brought Reverend up to Minneapolis, St. Paul. That's why you've seen Reverend up there.
We have Spike Moss.
Okay. Mr. Moss?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So everybody, now please make sure that we have everything quiet in the background and no speakerphone. Oh, thank you very much for that.
Murder, second-degree manslaughter, and third-degree murder
Okay. There it is. There it is. There it is. Jonathan and Mr. Moss at Pastor McAfee, David Masiotra, did you know that this man is holding on to his pension?
I did read that yesterday, yes.
I mean, he'll get about $1 million.
And we have Mr. Fancher.
I'll read it to
He
you.
might hold to it, but I bet he ain't gonna spend it.
Ooh, now, wow. If you got the money and you can't spend it, how about that? Whew.
We're back in 45.
Okay, we're coming up, everybody. Stand by. Mark Fancher, it's great hearing your voice. All right, everybody, quiet. I'm coming right up in about 30. Okay. And
30.
remember, bring the music down after my intro comes in, okay? Thank you.
$15. 10. 5.
Okay, quiet, please, everybody.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, second hour, Wednesday, April 21st, 2021. I'm Santita Jackson, WCPT 820 here in Chicago, and AM 950 Radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. People have been so excited about the Derek Chauvin verdict. He was found guilty on all counts. What do you think about that? Call me, text me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. We want to get your feedback on the Santita Jackson Show. If you text us, GWC Injury Lawyers, they are responsible for doing that for you. So I want to hear from you. Tell me. What do you think about the verdict? Are you satisfied with it? What do you think is going to happen with the other 3 police officers who will be tried together later on this summer? What about it? What about Derek Chauvin and the pension that he's going to hold on to? Wow, let's get to some of these headlines and talk about it with this magnificent panel. Chicago, we will have a high of 44 degrees, rain, and some snow. Yes, it's April, everybody, but it's also Chicago. 44 degrees, mostly cloudy in Minneapolis, St. Paul. The Dow closed down 256 points. The NASDAQ closed down 128 points yesterday, and the S&P 500 closed down 28 points. Wow, the Twins were shut out by the Oakland A's yesterday, 1-0. The Cubs are triumphant over the Mets, 3-1. And the White Sox, well, they had a good old time, 8-5 over Cleveland, everybody. What about the Derek Chauvin case, everybody? Well, guess what? Bet you didn't know this. Even though he was found guilty on all charges, he will be eligible to keep his pension despite the guilty verdict, although he was fired from the police department and has been convicted of second-degree murder in the death of George Floyd. According to this Newsweek magazine article, the Minnesota Public Employees Retirement Association confirmed to Newsweek that he would remain eligible for those benefits. According to the spokesperson for the Minnesota Public Employees Retirement Association, quote, regardless of the outcome, Derek Chauvin remains eligible for a pension. He is eligible to commence a monthly benefit reduced for early retirement at age 50 or an unreduced benefit at age 55. He turned 45 last month, everybody, according to an analysis of police payroll, salary, and contract information from CNN. Chauvin could receive more than $1 million in pension benefits, which are partially funded by the taxpayers during his retirement years. The former police officer will qualify to receive what could amount to $50,000 a year in state pension benefits. What do you think about this conviction, everyone? Well, I tell you what, Darnella Frazier, whose video captured this moment seen and heard and felt all around the world, she said she cried so hard. She wrote on Facebook, I just cried so hard. This last hour, my heart was beating so fast. I was so anxious, anxiety busting through the roof, everybody. She said, it's been nights I stayed up apologizing to George Floyd for not doing more, not physically interacting and saving his life. Bless her heart. And in the meantime, while we were reading or hearing the jury's verdict read to us, Makia Bryant, 16-year-old in Columbus, Ohio, was being shot and killed on her front lawn just as we were hearing these convictions yesterday. In an unprecedented move, according to this USA Today report, police later showed body cam footage of an officer shooting the girl as she appeared to stab two people with a knife. The video shows the officer approaching a driveway with a group of young people standing there. Now, mind you, young Makia had called the police because, as she's a foster child, she was staying in a home. Two adults came to see her. Something happened, and she wasn't tased, she wasn't pepper sprayed, she was shot 4 times and killed. What do you think about that? They say you shouldn't bring a knife to a gunfight, but should you bring a gun to a knife fight? Talk to me, everybody. 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Let's get some reaction to this verdict, everybody. All right, we have got on the panel Reverend Jerry McAfee, senior pastor of the New Salem Missionary Baptist Church in Minneapolis. We have got Spike Moss of Minneapolis, brilliant organizer and activist for more than 50 years. Jonathan Jackson, senior spokesman for Rainbow Push. David Maciotto, brilliant writer from Salon Magazine. Of course, his latest book is I Am Somebody, Why Jesse Jackson Matters. And attorney Mark Fancher, National Conference of Black Lawyers. Attorney C.K. Hoffler has been with us, breaking it down. Of course, she's the head of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest black bar association in the country, in the world, actually, more than 65,000 lawyers. Well, let's get right to it. Pastor McAfee, what did you make of yesterday's decision? Somebody, I can hear something in the background, so let's mute that. Okay. All right. Pastor McAfee, what about yesterday?
I was surprised. Certainly happy, but I didn't think that they would charge him, give a guilty verdict on all 3 charges. I was ecstatic. I was elated, happy, and just downright glad, and a sense of relief that after 30 years, finally seeing an officer, for the most part, go to jail.
This has never happened in the history of the state, right?
Not for a white officer. They ignore. One of the things I was telling people before, when I first got involved, young boy by the name of Tyrell Nelson, there was no videos or nothing then. And one of the things I've also said to younger folk, quit trying to critique what y'all think we did or did not do, and you wasn't in our shoes. We didn't have half of the stuff that y'all got right now. Wasn't no video cameras. Officers didn't have none of that. They said the boy was pointing a gun. There was no video to show it. There was no gun. And he wasn't shot in the back chest. He was shot in the back. And we've been fighting those things for that long. And finally, the young lady filmed it. People saw it. But remember, they saw Philando Castile. But the laws are so crooked. But this time we got a victory.
You know what, Jonathan Jackson, a national spokesman for Rainbow Push, is going to be leaving. So before I get to you, Spike Moss, Jonathan, your thoughts about yesterday?
Congratulations to Reverend McAfee, to Brother Spike. Many of us in far distant places feel the victory, and we're very excited. But these 2 men, and there are others that I don't know, but these 2 men in specific, Brother Spike and Reverend McAfee, laid the groundwork. I would tell you voting matters, from the sustained efforts they've had in fighting for racial justice on this was only one culminating event that we know of, but they've done so many. They've worked with Keith Ellison over the year, ensuring that he got into the Congress, ensuring that he got into the Attorney General's office. And it's the ground troops that they've led, Brother Spike and Brother McAfee. I wish the national media would give them much more time and attention. I applaud you, Santita, for reaching out to these 2 heroes. And I hope that we honor them, celebrate them for the countless hours they put in this. And as far as the pension that Mr. Chauvin is receiving, that's part of a broader brush of not just a bad apple, not just a bad tree. I can't stand that analogy. But when the orchard is bad, is what we're looking at. America spends $193+ billion a year in policing. 193. Jail is less than 1 year. Prison is over a year. This is an industry. We're looking at the sister city of Minneapolis, not just in St. Paul, but in Milwaukee, where blacks are 11 times more likely to go to jail than whites. It's all in Wisconsin. It's all in Minnesota. It's all in Michigan and Illinois. No more time to focus on just Mississippi. It's Minnesota. It's Michigan. It's Illinois. It's Wisconsin.
It's Iowa.
And so congratulations.
it's
Iowa. I'm so proud of these men.
Oh, absolutely. And
Thanks for having me on the phone with them.
Well, thank you so much.
Abolitionists and freedom fighters.
But okay, I can hear something in the background, somebody. So please, because we can hear it. It's very, very loud. It's drowning everybody out.
Come on, Spike, man. Spike's still working.
He is. And you leave him alone. You leave him alone. Hearing all this shushing.
I should be still working.
That's all right. But you know what, Jonathan, I'm so glad that you were with us today just for a few minutes, but it means so much to hear from you. And I'm so glad that you are highlighting the fact that these men have been on the ground with their ground troops day in, day out for decades.
Everybody didn't do this. These men led this effort.
Yes.
And they have to be acknowledged and single sourced. Some people have the baton, have gone across the finish line. Other people are being spokesmen and the face of it. But these are the true spokesmen and these are the leaders. And I am so honored to be put with the Freedom Band. And to my attorney, C.K. Hoffler, hang in there, young lady. You are the bomb. Thanks, Brother David.
I'm out.
You're
Mike,
so kind.
Mic drop on that. Jonathan, my brother. There's too many things.
I don't want nobody to hire you away from me. Because if I need somebody, I'm calling CK.
Hey, we all call CK. Oh, my
After
goodness.
I call Reverend McAfee and Spike to get us started.
Spike Moss, what's on your mind today? How are you feeling?
Well, I was devastated, which Rev would tell you, because I was thinking all the time they're going to give us the same old racism. So I took your father and we went up to the room with the whole family. And we had a giant TV screen almost the size of the wall. And we all sat in there, and I was as quiet as the family was, because none of us were assured we get the victory. And then a little while after that, Rib came and joined us also. And when they read it, I honestly just sunk back in my seat and tears welled up in my eye. I could not believe, for the first time in the history, when I reminded you that this was going on before I stepped out, I got hit with it at 16, and I never let go. In 66, we rebelled when they beat that 14-year-old girl downtown, and we never looked back. When I met Rev, he was a young man with a family and a new preacher. And I didn't convince him to join me. I asked him to join me. Can you do this? I need a preacher. And he made up his mind almost on the spot. And he stayed by my side all those years and all those cases. So he had to have the same joy, and he probably teared up the same way I did, because he knows as well as I do. Every time we saw one of our young men dead, we saw holes in their backs. Even though they were accused of charging an officer or trying to take his gun, they would say on the news he was shot in the chest. Rev's standing in emergency rooms with me, and we're looking at the victims with these holes in their back and the holes in the back of their head, and no justice ever coming forward. But I'll say this is credit to both of us. We never broke, we never bent, and we never quit, and we never gave up. As long as we had love in our heart for our people and a spirit to challenge our right to be treated justly, we just kept going. But I can honestly say, and I don't know where Rev's at, I just never thought from all those years this day would ever come.
Well, Pastor McAfee, the day is come. The day has come. The day is here. What's next?
Well, I think there's several things that need to happen in the city. But before I say that, let me do this. Because strange things happen, and my mind operates a little different. And while we're certainly grateful for the family, Mike and I was in that room yesterday, and they mentioned, how long the fight has been, but they never even knew or realized that two of the people who've been fighting for those 30 years was even in the room. And so the victory for them was different than the victory for us. They was fighting for one particular individual, which they should have been. But we've been fighting, me 30 years and Spike 50 years, and many of them had no clue. And for the most part, I know we want to do a thing tonight at the church, talk about what this meant to Minnesotans, because no one knew what we've been going through. And now for people to see it, but then also they see it, but it's almost like we're invisible. What's amazing is what you will find that it took to win. Mike Freeman laid some stuff out yesterday that he's trying to get passed in the legislation. And so I'm going to call and get those bills that he's trying to get pushed through and start talking about it as well. Because, there's a whole lot of work left to do. This qualified immunity got to go.
So that's next. So qualified immunity, legislatively, you're saying that there's a lot of work to be done behind this.
Yep. In the trial for the Powder police officer with Dante Wright.
Yes.
We got to make sure that trial is not in Washington County, because Washington County don't have the same diversity as Hennepin County. And the chance, I'm not willing to believe that 82 or 88% white and 2% black would find a white woman guilty. So at least to get a fact, it shouldn't be there, and we got our research to make sure it don't.
David Mastriotra, what do you make of this?
Oh, thank you for having me, Santita.
Thank you.
Reverend McAfee is certainly correct, and he would know much more about it than I do, that there's much more progress to make, much more mileage to cover as we move toward a more fair, just, and equitable society, and we move to activate democracy in a full-fledged, authentic manner. However, I'm hopeful that we're starting to see the tide turn. I'll remind the audience, especially those who aren't in the Chicago area, that Jason Van Dyke was convicted of murder in Chicago for shooting Laquan McDonald 16 times. The judge let Van Dyke off with a hideously lenient sentence, but all the same, Van Dyke was the first white officer convicted of shooting a black person in the state of Illinois. And now, of course, we have this, sick murderer, Derek Chauvin, one would hope spending the rest of his life in prison. And one of the significant aspects of the Chauvin trial is that 10 police officers, including the Minneapolis chief of police, testified against him. So we can begin to hope that perhaps the thin blue line is beginning to become less rigid. This is the first time I've seen this happen in my entire life. I don't have the long track record and resume on these issues as Reverend McAfee, but I've been writing about police reform and criminal justice since I was a college student. So that's almost 20 years now. And also, of course, 26 states plus the District of Columbia, since the murder of George Floyd, have passed police reform legislation. Now, of course, in some of the states, the legislative measures are more significant than others. In Indiana, where I live, they essentially just formed a commission to look into potential matters of abuse and corruption. However,
Okay.
all of this indicates that we're moving in the right direction, We had 20 million Americans of all races, of all religions,
hold on
of
one
all
second.
generations,
Someone
and
has something going on in the
sexual
back.
orientation.
Hold on. Somebody has something going on
In the street,
okay.
marching after Floyd's death. When I spoke to Reverend Jesse Jackson about it, he said to have a true rainbow coalition in the street because a black man was killed is a big deal. And it is a big deal. That's not something that would have happened in the 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe not even in the 90s. We have to maintain this momentum.
What do you think has changed?
That's what Congressman Waters was trying to say. Stay in the street, maintain this momentum.
But why do you think it's significant? And what do you think has changed to bring about this bouquet of humanity, as one of the prosecutors said?
I think it's the fruit of the labor of people like Reverend Jackson, Reverend McAfee, Mr. Moss, people who've dedicated themselves to this cause heroically and valiantly, in some cases 4 decades. It's making an impact on the culture. It's making an impact on our political system, and now we're finally beginning to see it make an impact on our legal system. Activism, organization, advocacy, it can and does change the world. As the great song, People Have the Power by Patti Smith states, the people have the power to redeem the work of fools. When the people rise in critical mass numbers and organize with intelligence, this is what can happen. Now, if we treat this as the end game, Derek Chauvin's going to prison, and we all go back home, this will be an isolated victory. But if we maintain that pressure, more victories will follow.
Mark Fancher, I've got a couple of minutes before we go to break. Your thoughts?
Well, I can't say that I predicted this outcome, but I certainly was not surprised by it for several reasons. One is that, at least to me, it's clear that God has had his hand in this from the very beginning. I watch, as part of what I do, police violence, and there have been so many incidents, not the least of which was Walter Scott, where he's shot in the back in full view of the world. I mean, so many of these incidents have been recorded, but they've never inspired the type of global type of reaction that we saw with respect to George Floyd's killing. I think that, also, as David said, I think this is the product of a lot of hard work that the people have put in to make the conditions
1 minute
for the type of result that we got. But finally, I really think it's important for us to understand the system and how it deals with things. The capitalist system, that we live under is intended to oppress and exploit and to marginalize, and it's white supremacist as well. And so it is par for the course for communities of color to endure the type of treatment that we've seen for so very long. But what the system
30
recognizes is that when the people become conscious, when the people begin to rise up, when they threaten to break things open, then it's necessary to pacify the people.
15.
In this case, the system knew that if a guilty verdict was not returned,
10.
The world would explode. And so everything,
5.
resources were put into this prosecution, things that you've never seen before. Keith Ellison was given free reign and the ability and the resources and the capacity to do a prosecution the way it should be done all of the time.
Stay
to
right
make
there.
sure that everything...
Hold on, stay right there. I want to hook on the other side to that. That's important. Back with more. Santita Jackson Show. Thank you all so much. I can hear something in the background, guys. So if you all can just make sure that there's nothing in the background, because we can't hear the guests when they're talking. So, but Mark Fancher, you're making some great points because, Pastor McAfee, Mr. Moss, C.K. Hoffler, Mark, number one, you didn't have, it was not a defense, it was a prosecution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is because it was the police who were casting one of their own out. And I think that this is still a victory, but I hope that we can go beyond this personal casting out to an examination of the systemic problems that we've got, that we still have, because they killed that girl, they killed this child, just as we were about to get the verdict on the front lawn. I mean, there's a culture there. In Columbus, Ohio, this is everywhere. I mean, she had a knife. A knife. Why didn't you tase her? Why didn't you pepper spray her, mace her? Why shoot her 4 times?
Well, what he did, he actually did what most of the police training is. You know, they normally shoot in 2, 3, 4 bursts in the upper body mass. And the logic, I know the laws of parent, basically says if that person is a threat to the officer or to another person, you can use deadly force. It's a touchy kind of deal, and there's no question we wish that he would have maimed her. We had a case up here similar a couple of years ago. The girl didn't die, but she was getting ready to stab 2 ladies who came to her house for a fight. And the tricky part of it is that if he hadn't have shot her and she'd have stabbed one of them girls up here and they died, what would the response be? So it's
but what about tasing or something, disabling them?
Yeah.
I just, and I'm not in that position. I don't do that work. But there's got to be something other than deadly force. Is that the only answer we have here?
We need more.
If I might speak to that,
yes.
It's all in the same boat. Mm-hmm. When he arrives with a generation of racism and prejudice and bigotry,
1 minute,
and he sees that silhouette of color, I have said and I repeat, all training goes out the window. So they voted years ago not to get guns that would wound anybody, only carry guns that would kill. In our state, tasering is not even just the problem. When you have the right to reach to that taser
30 seconds
because it's a black person, and turn it on full power and then let it go, you are in agonizing pain, shaking on the ground. They know exactly what they're doing. I'm sorry, I can't finish what I'm saying.
15.
No, we'll talk about it on the other side of the break. But I'm gonna come back to
10.
Before I go to the callers. I'm gonna come back to everybody, but I'm come back to Mark.
5.
Hey, everybody.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody, the Santita Jackson Show. I am Santita. We've been talking with this magnificent panel about the Derek Chauvin conviction yesterday. He was convicted on all counts. We're going to get back to C.K. Hoffler to find out what all of that means. How long could he go away for? But Mark, you were making some points about Keith Ellison, the state attorney general, the former congressman. And indeed, this is someone who Pastor McAfee has had his hands on, and Spike Moss, and Pastor McAfee has spent a lot of time helping to mentor then Congressman Keith Ellison, and now the state attorney general. What did you find admirable about how he marshaled this case?
Well, I am biased. I mean, Keith is a longtime National Conference of Black Lawyers comrade. So, our organization watched him when he was in development, and he prosecuted that case like NCBL would prosecute it. And as every prosecutor should prosecute a case like that. And the system doesn't always allow it, though. And in this case, as I was saying, the system understood that there had to be a conviction here, or else the city would explode. Possibly the world would explode. So extraordinary things were allowed to happen in this case. I mean, you had the police chief and police officers taking the stand against the fellow man in blue. You had, the power of experts who came with very credible testimony. You had an army of prosecutors who were available to do this case. So he was given free rein to do what he needed to do, and he did it with a vengeance and with great results. So what I'm hopeful, about, is that now that the system has done what the system does, which is to pacify the people for a moment, that we don't do what the people often do, which is to say, okay, all things are fine now, the system works, we've seen that it works, and so therefore we don't have to do anything further. I don't think that will happen because people have been speaking very cautiously about this result, and we have seen just within the last day or so, additional evidence that things have not really changed. But I think we also need to be very careful about what we do in response. There is so much talk about legislative change, policy change, and all of those things, which are not bad. But as far as I'm concerned, it is like putting lipstick on the pigs. Okay, you can put all kinds of nice policies in place, but as long as you have a police culture, which is well entrenched and which is white supremacist in its orientation, and which is oriented toward violence and aggressive approaches to communities of color, and nothing is done about that culture, then you don't have any change. You can adopt all the policies you want, pass all the legislation you want, but if these officers are committed to beating people up simply because of the color of their skin, to killing them simply because of the color of their skin, then we will have no change. So instead of just putting lipstick on the pigs, we need to purge law enforcement of the pigs and put some real people in there who are responsible, conscientious, skillful, and diverse, not just in terms of race and ethnicity and gender and things like that, but diverse in terms of their skill sets. Because too many police officers who are trained as soldiers, as warriors, are sent to deal with things that really demand the skills of someone who's a mental health specialist, someone who's a drug treatment counselor, someone who's a mediator, someone who is able to do a lot of the things that they're not prepared to do.
Pastor McAfee, is there now I'm sorry, someone wanted to respond? Pastor?
No.
Oh no. Well, Pastor McAfee, is there any discussion now about how policing can be done differently, particularly, or do you think that will happen? Is that discussion taking place? Are people looking at that in light of what happened with Dante Wright and Kimberly Potter? Oops, I, thought I had a taser, but it was a gun.
Yeah, I know Spike is still part of the mediation group that's looking at examining all of those things from post-training and all of that. And the other good thing that we have right now, as you all mentioned, is Chief Arredondo, that we've all worked together for years and talked about how to do some of these things better. And just so people know, y'all up here, officers have tried to testify before, but they did not get the support from the administration. I don't know one man in particular, Eric Lukes, checked and challenged two white officers on how they was treating a person, and they wrote him up and got him suspended. So, but what you saw this time was everything working and moving together. So there are some changes taking place. I know Harrington is over the post, not the post, but over public safety. And we've all been having good discussions about getting some things shifted.
David Masiotra, when you look at these, when you see the collective sigh of relief yesterday, where do you think young people are going to go next? Where do you think the society might move next? Do you see, is this a pivotal moment for our society, or is this just a moment?
I do think that it is pivotal, and to Mark Fancher's point, one of the most important things to have occurred in the past year since this, horrific public televised lynching, because that's what it was, is we've broken through the thin blue line cult. And by that, I mean among the general American public, predominantly the white public, there was a cultish devotion to the police, manifesting in the belief that an officer can do no wrong. You know, if an officer shoots someone for throwing a stick of gum away on the curb, well, then that was justified. And that cult really began, it was always there, but it really began to gain momentum and intensity following the 9/11 attacks. We've broken through that. You ask about young people. I not only see it with my students, but public opinion polls indicate that it's widespread among Americans in their 20s and their 30s. There's now a generalized suspicion of police behavior, and there's a generalized support for significant reforms of police policies. So that's one of the most significant things to happen. Now, a few people have raised the idea of Chauvin keeping his pension. Another necessary task is we now have to make sure that public officials at the municipal level and the state level, mayors, governors, city council members, and state legislators, begin to break the stranglehold that police unions have. I'm a major supporter of organized labor and the labor movement, but let's compare. Teachers often have to go on strike to just get a minimal increase in wages, to get minimally better protections and work conditions. They don't even have school supplies supplied for them in many cases. So teachers have to march to get more pencils and erasers and better classroom conditions. And police officers essentially get a blank check every single year because mayors, all too often even progressive mayors, are terrified to cross the police unions. That needs to end. And if that ends, then we'll begin to see an end to situations like Chauvin keeping his pension and cops getting away with murder, getting away with assault, getting away with various other forms of abuse and misuse of power.
Attorney C.K. Hoffler, what could we be looking at in terms of time? It turns out in Minnesota, you spend time concurrently. That is, he's not going to serve one sentence and then another, but serve them all at one time. How much time are we looking at, maybe?
Well, he could serve a maximum right now, but it could be more. Let's just say 75 years. So 40 years for the second-degree murder, 25 years for the third-degree murder, and 10 years for the second-degree manslaughter. That's typically according to the sentencing guidelines. But the state may ask for more because they may feel that the circumstances warrant more time for whatever reason. And remember, they have access to information that we have. They have a lot of information that we don't have, that the jury didn't see and that we didn't see. So they could ask for more, and they're going to present their memorandum to the court, asking for what they believe is an appropriate sentence. They could ask for less. And ultimately, the judge will look at it, look at the evidence, and make a determination. But, there's going to be weigh-in by a number of parties, probation officers and the like. But ultimately, it's going to be up to the judge to make the final determination. There will be an opportunity for witness statements, character witness statements, and the like to be submitted on his behalf, and all of that. And then also, we have to remember that George Floyd's family may wish to make a statement at the sentencing hearing and would have the opportunity more than likely to do that. And that's just typically how it would happen. Now, this judge may choose to conduct it differently, but that's generally what happens. And so there are a lot of variables that go into that, but he could receive more than 75 years. But right now, if you do 40 plus 25 plus 10, that's 75 years. That's what the sentencing guidelines would call for based on the crimes he has been convicted of.
Do you expect Chauvin to make some kind of statement to the family as he's sentenced?
He might do so in an effort to make the sentence less harsh, but at this point it would be disingenuous. What they saw was this man, even when their loved one was, essentially dead, continue to have a knee on the neck. So I think it would just inflame. But, everybody deserves an opportunity to be heard. So he may choose to do that, but I don't think would have any impact, and it could actually backfire on him.
Mama
Because
D,
it would just be
yes.
disingenuous, I believe.
I'm trying to look at all the different angles. Mama D, what's on your mind today?
Oh, well, hallelujah, greetings. Two things quickly. Reverend Dr. King says we've got to get the language straight. The 13th Amendment was not about everybody. Slavery is different from racism, and crimes against humanity is different from discrimination. What happened to us as a Negro people did not happen to everybody, and an everybody solution is not going to work. In 1967, the Kerner report spelled it
very
out.
quickly, Mama D. What do you think specifically?
Okay. They spelled it out.
Hold on, Mama D. Specifically, because I need us to stay on point here. What do you think about the decision yesterday?
Okay. What happened yesterday is what happened when we cheered the Van Dyke verdict.
Okay.
The jury did the right thing. The judge turned 40 possible years into 4 years. So I got suspicious of this judge when he criticized the bystander firefighter for accused her of arguing with the defense attorney, and he accused her of arguing with the court. And she wasn't doing either of those things. And when Chauvin said that he wanted the judge to rule on the mitigating circumstances that apply in this case, to give him more time, and then the judge made that comment about Maxine Waters. So we're not out of the woods yet. And until we get reparations to repair the damage that didn't happen to everybody, we're just talking loud and saying nothing.
Okay. All right, Spike Moss.
So what do you think about that?
I think you're on to something. Spike Moss, what is next? I mean, what is next? I mean, are we looking at the Kimberly Potter case? Are we looking at what is? I mean, now that something has fundamentally changed here, because I think that everybody responded to what was going on around them, Pastor McAfee. I mean, this is a very different world. It's a very different world today than it was May 25th, 2020. I don't think people expected Spike Moss to see millions of people spill into the streets all over the world once we saw this video. What is next?
Well, let me first say, as usual, all the people on your panel are correct about everything they were saying, and the sister that just got off was trying to tie that train to that history, which is necessary, because most of our people think we have rights and think we're really citizens and think we're seen as human beings. And I hope she never drops teaching them, because they don't know why they're not treated the same. But let me say this. The only thing that brought the world to the table is the real issue. You watch the murder from the beginning to the middle to the end. You watch the murder where a human being is pretty much begging for his life at a whisper because you're taking his breath. It pained anybody who still had some humanity in it. However, to one of your panelists that told the truth, the overwhelming amount of Americans are caught up in racism, bigotry, and prejudice. So if you take 25 of them and put them in a jury, look for 22 to not be able to help you. I used to think maybe if the judge wasn't a Republican, we'll get a break. Republicans and Democrats, there's no separation when it comes to racism. The Democrats are in charge of the cities where we suffer. The Republicans are in charge of the states because the hate is all over the state. So we're surrounded with hate from the top of Minnesota to the bottom. We were lucky to even get a jury that could think different. We go back in this state as business as usual after that trial. And some of them will go to their job in places today and just be vindictive because you finally got one case. However, those cases will not change for black people from one end of this country to the other as long as that racism is in the mind, the heart, the spirit of these people. And if it's part of their culture, they can't let it go. And let me make myself clear. How do you let go something so atrocious, so powerful, that it gives you what's called white privilege? And when you can stand up and say white privilege and announce it the way they do and braggadocious about it the way they are, this fight, these young people have to hear everything your parents are saying because they really don't know the next step. And you had one day of glory. I've seen a lifetime, 56 years of struggle and pain with no justice rendered, civil rights, human rights, nobody. This is across the country, which has devastated our people. We went over there yesterday. Give you an example. We meet with the governor. It's Jesse and I speaking. We're sitting there speaking to him, and the governor says himself, he's not confessing, he's just telling the truth. We put the bills together. We put the bills on the floor. Overwhelming amount of Republicans, not one will vote. Well, what do you think is going on in the Capitol? Anything that we do that might help ourselves, the overwhelming amount of white Americans will vote it down. Even gun control, you're assassinating people in movie shows and schools and daycares and churches. They won't vote to protect you because you don't have the right color. So my point is, this celebration, I'm going to speak today to these people down at the Government Center. This celebration will be short. It will be short. And let me remind you and all my listeners, the day that he was killed, didn't you recognize all the murders that took place during that time, after that time, all the way to this moment? They've been killing our people. You ain't putting nothing in my mind to change me in Detroit or Ohio or Mississippi or Oklahoma. So you got one. But we will never know all of them because not all of them come forward and say, I'm a racist, or make mistakes to know you're a racist. Now, what Rev said that was unique here, our chief came from the bottom. Our chief witnessed, and Rev didn't bring this up, he witnessed us fight for their right to be police. Our chief watched us fight for their right to have rank. He watched us fight for the right to be the precinct captains in black communities. But then he had to go to court and win against systemic racism against the Minneapolis Police Department. So the white guys you saw are white guys that he has influenced and put in key positions who think like we think. And I want to remind Red, when we would go to the street with homicides and stuff, these are the cops would grab us, welcome us, and tell us, what do you need? And walk us all over the place to make sure we do what we want and make sure them other ones couldn't get to us. Those are the type of cops you saw on the stand that Dondo has nurtured and brought into reality. And they were going to tell the truth no matter what. But on every police department, to Red's point again, there's always a body of police who will tell the truth. But the pressure that comes from the numbers in the union stops them from standing up. Dondo gave them the freedom to finally stand up. Another unique thing he did last year, towards the end of last year, he told the union, I will not sign the contract under Crow. I will not sign it to him anymore. He got to go. And he held the line and he not signed it. So what that means is you now got to move this attack on the union that your panelist said keeps interfering and keeps backing them. When you get to that pension, for example, the lawmakers vote for that. It ain't the union. The union just makes the request. They voted for all that protection. They voted to pay their insurance. In the state of Minnesota, if you don't have insurance, you lose that shield. Meaning, if you get the cases they got, they would have lost the insurance and lost the shield. We need to make officers across the country pay for their own insurance and let them lose those shields when we can't touch them. We also need to do two more things before I stop. We need to empty these files in every single city where cops got 1 to 50, 1 to 60, 1 to 70 charges of brutality, and they still have that job. They've never been to court, never been tried or charged, never been to jail. But they still have that job, and when you go in there, it's illegal to throw those files out. We need to deal with those files. And this is my final statement. In every state, including mine, murder cases are open until somebody goes to jail. We need to have enough courage to fight to open up all them insulting murder cases where people walked away with open murder in front of our witnesses. We need to try them, not them try us. We need to try them on trial.
All right. You know what? I'm going to get some 30 seconds, and I'm going to give the final 2 minutes to you, Pastor McAfee. Your thoughts. Mark Fancher, you've given us a lot to think about. This is a moment.
Yeah, I think, as I said before, God's hand was in this one. We need to pray that he puts his hand into every incident that's like it across the country. The other thing is that in Camden, New Jersey, which was a very troubled police department, they fired everybody, and made those who had been employed reapply for their jobs as police officers and to demonstrate their commitment to progressive policing. I think we need to fire police all across the country, fire them all, and make them reapply and demonstrate that they're going to do policing the way policing should be done.
Rebuild. David Masiotra, Salon Magazine, the author of the new book, I Am Somebody, Why Jesse Jackson Matters. David, your thoughts?
Well, thanks for mentioning my book. It was wonderful to see Reverend Jesse Jackson there yesterday, still fighting after all of these years. One of the statements that Reverend Jackson made to me in one of the conversations we had that went into this book is that the vote, even though many try to downplay it or even dismiss it, is a militant apparatus. And Keith Ellison, as Attorney General in Minnesota, illustrates and exemplifies the wisdom in that statement. So the Catholic hierarchy protected many bad priests, and it became a systemic issue of corruption. The Catholic hierarchy is not a democratic institution. Our mayoral offices, our city councils, our governor offices, our state legislatures, those are democratic institutions. So we can begin to vote the people out who protect abusive cops and who make horrible deals with police unions to protect abusive cops, and begin to replace those officials with people like Keith Ellison, who will serve justice and act in the interest of the people.
We have the power. With all due respect, Attorney Hoffler, I'm going to give these final 2 minutes to Pastor McAfee. Pastor McAfee?
Let me say thank you to you all again for continuing to allow us to shed some light on what this city has been all about and is about. And I certainly echo the sentiments of my brother, Spike, with all that we have to do. If we just stay in the mindset of emotion, then we won't get a whole lot more done. We've got to make sure that some of the young folk who do have listening ears can take some of the seasoned direction and continue to move the needle. And in closing, let me say again that Reverend Jackson has been such an important role in society, period. And we need to continue to get that wisdom, and we're glad and grateful to God and to those of his family who continue to allow him to move in the
1 minute
he does to keep us on target. That's it.
We can't stand in his way. I can't even stand in between him and a piece of sweet potato pie served to him by Pastor McAfee. That's right. Up in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So how much space do I have? I love you, Pastor McAfee and Spike Moss, in a particular way, because you all have stood on the front lines. And I thank you for availing yourself to this show, because people need to know just who you are. You're on the ground with people every day. You've worked with George Floyd, and you have done everything you can to keep his name and all hope alive. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, blessings to you, my sister. And you, what can I say about Attorney Mark Fancher, great man of God in the law profession and brilliant man of God, all of you, people of God. David Masiotra, the book, I Am Somebody, Why Jesse Jackson Matters. And you should read about him in Salon. He wrote a really great piece on Hemingway. Loved it. Great, great, great. Love you. Oh, yeah. Love you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing, on the Santita Jackson Show. You all are just the best. I just want you to know, CK, I was trying to squeeze in, I have to let the preacher have the last word.
Yes, I'm still here.
But, is there anything you want to say on Facebook Live before we go?
No, just we have to keep fighting. Keep fighting. This is one step in the right direction that's opened the door for a massive fight for policing reform and change, not just federally, but on a statewide basis. That's it. And thank you, Santita.
Oh, no, I just love you and appreciate you. And thank you for breaking down, the legal side for us early in the show, because we absolutely need that. Pastor McAfee, thank you so much and you and Spike Moss, thank you for bringing Reverend up there. It meant a lot to a lot of people to see him there, but he wouldn't have been there without your invitation. And thank you so much for that, because he's been working with you all a long time, and it's done his heart a lot of good just to be there, and to be more than that, to be there with you. How about that? To be there with you. But we're going to do everything we can to keep this is your platform, just so that you know, Spike Moss and Pastor McAfee and Attorney Fancher and David Masiotra. This is your platform. You know that. I hope you know that now more than ever before. That anytime you have something you need to say, or if there's any issue that you feel needs to be highlighted, please bring it to me and we will make that happen. I'll do my best.
Oh, thank you so much, Santita.
Yeah.
I love the program, and I'm always grateful to be on.
Oh, I'm grateful to have you. You make it work.
Yeah, thank you. And also a special thank you to the brothers. It was an honor to hear you this morning, and I just thank you for your work that you've been doing.
Mark Fancher, they have been with these people. We know, Prince and Gary Hines of Sounds of Blackness and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis could have fallen through the cracks were it not for, over the past more than 50 years, Spike Moss, who would have the talent shows, who would get them to the Outward Bound programs. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis met in an engineering program. They were very, very bright students who had done well. Prince, my father, I didn't know this. He didn't let me know this 40 years ago, but he met Prince when Prince was about 12 or 13. Because he was known as the boy wonder who played all of the instruments. So it's these two individuals in particular have been on the ground, and all of the networks should have been talking to them. You don't need to talk about Minneapolis, Minnesota, and St. Paul, Brooklyn Center. You can talk to the people who are leading on the ground. There's no more established, no bigger church that serves our community better than New Salem Missionary Baptist Church. That's Pastor McAfee's church. I don't know why I haven't seen him on TV. It's crazy to me. Like, how you gonna come into someone's town and not talk to them? And everybody who's still with me on Facebook, you need to ask those questions too. They need to be taught. When you go into Chicago, you need to talk to people in Chicago. When you go into Atlanta, the same. LA, the same. Mobile, the same. Detroit, Jacksonville, Jackson, Mississippi, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Brooklyn Center. There are people who are on the ground there every day. Need I remind you that according to the 24/7 Wall Street Report, which is a business website, the fourth worst city in the world for Black people to live in is still Minneapolis, St. Paul. And these are the people who are turning the tide on that, and they work at it every single day. Every single day. So you need to reach out to the mainstream outlets and ask them why. Not why. Just tell them, I want you to reach out to Pastor McAfee and Spike Moss. Just put that out there. Producers are always looking for someone to interview. Have them on. They are always welcome here, but they should be on those stations. Locally, nationally, internationally. They should be on those stations. And that is media education for you all today. Let them know. Let them know. And that's right, Sharon. We've only just begun. Oh, Karen Carpenter, one of my favorites. We've only just begun. But I love you all so much. I'm going to get off here because I got to actually do some TV myself from right here. I'm going to act like I've gone into a television set, but not really. So I love you all. Mark Fancher, love you so much. David Masiotra, love you. Pastor McAfee, I love you. Spike Moss, C.K. Hoffler, love you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paul. Everybody, God bless you. Have a great day, everybody. And tell somebody you love that you love them and mean it. All right. Love you, everybody. Have a great one.